All right, so we are diving into vintage Japanese wall art today.
Oh, fun.
I know you're into like the 2024 design trends,
Yes.
especially the ones that have like that Japandi feel and, those colors and the textures and all that. And
Absolutely.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right around the corner.
Oh, yes, it
So
is.
we'll throw in some shopping tips and even some styling advice.
Love that.
And guess what? We have an expert who
Oh,
knows both interior design and Japanese art history.
that's me.
It's like the perfect combo.
I know, right? It's really interesting how this whole interest in vintage is really booming,
Yeah.
especially in Japan. It's not just a niche market anymore. It's going global.
Yeah, and the yen's devaluation has made Japanese vintage like super desirable,
Yes.
even for celebrities.
I know.
Like Hailey Bieber and J-Lo shopping at a more vintage in Tokyo.
I've heard of it.
Can you imagine?
It's incredible. It speaks volumes about how Japanese vintage is now seen as like high-end and collectible.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing, though. In China, there's still a bit of a stigma around secondhand goods.
Oh, really?
So it just highlights those cultural nuances in how we view vintage.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into those 2024 design trends.
Okay.
It sounds like hot brown is like the color to watch.
Yes.
Warm, inviting, perfect for like creating that cozy vibe.
Exactly. And it's not just brown. We're talking caramels.
Okay.
Even shades like coral and persimmon.
Oh, wow.
Think about those colors against like natural wood textured fabrics.
Yes.
That's where the magic happens.
I can already picture it now. I can already see a vintage Japanese woodblock print
Yes.
with those warm, earthy tones fitting right in.
Beautiful.
But it's not just about color, though, right?
Right.
Texture is huge, too.
Absolutely. Boucle rib ceramics, wool wood.
Whoa,
It's all about creating a tactile experience. And this aligns so beautifully with that Japanese aesthetic, which has always valued that connection to natural material.
I am all about layering textures.
Yep.
Speaking of natural materials, terracotta is having a serious moment.
It is.
It's popping up everywhere. Modern, classic, you name it.
It's so versatile. I love that about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's glazed or unglazed, it adds warmth and a touch of earthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, copper accents are making a comeback.
Oh.
A bit of a shift from all the brass we've been seeing.
Copper.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I haven't seen a lot of that yet.
it's coming.
I'll keep my eye out. Okay, now let's get to the heart of it. Japandi.
Okay.
I am so drawn to this blend of Japanese and Scandinavian design. It just makes sense.
Yes.
Both cultures value minimalism functionality, natural materials.
Absolutely.
It's like they were meant to be together.
What's exciting, though, is how Japandi is evolving for 2024.
Okay.
It's even more refined functional storage that's almost invisible. Minimal decor with subtle textures like linen and wool.
Oh, wow.
Personal touches and Ikebana-inspired arrangements take center stage.
I love that it's taking those core Japandi principles and kind of elevating. So how does vintage Japanese wall art fit into all of this?
Well, imagine like a vintage Japanese scroll
Yeah.
in a Japandi space. The simplicity, the natural materials, the subtle imperfections,
Mm-hmm.
it just adds a layer of history and authenticity.
Yes.
And that's where wabi-sabi comes in.
Wabi-sabi.
Yes.
That philosophy of finding beauty in imperfection,
Right.
embracing the natural cycle.
Exactly.
It just makes sense with vintage pieces.
Think of a woodblock print with a slightly faded color or like a crack in the frame.
Yeah.
In the wabi-sabi philosophy, those imperfections aren't flaws.
Right.
They're what give the piece character.
They tell a story.
Yes.
Like they've lived a life and they have something to share.
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, switching gears a bit. The sources mention some interesting graphic design trends.
Oh, yeah.
Bold, abstract patterns are big, but so is minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with line art, it seems like two opposite directions.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, how do we make sense of it all?
Yeah.
Is it about finding a balance?
I think it could be, imagine a gallery wall with a mix of styles and scales.
Okay.
You could have a bold, abstract piece as your focal point,
Yeah.
and then surround it with smaller, more minimalist pieces.
Oh, I like that it creates that visual interest while staying true to that Japandi aesthetic.
Exactly.
Now, the articles also highlighted Japanese graphic design,
Right.
specifically manga, and its distinct style.
Yes.
Could we see that influencing wall art?
Absolutely. Manga has such a strong visual language
Yeah.
with its exaggerated features, dynamic lines, and those iconic sound effects.
Right?
Imagine those elements translated into wall art, maybe in a more abstract or stylized way.
I can see it. I'm already picturing it.
Yes.
And speaking of Japanese visuals, did you see the part about Yuru Kiara?
Oh, yes.
Those adorable mascot characters they use for everything?
I love those.
Imagine a queen putting those into wall art.
That's so fun. It ties in perfectly with the trend of personalized and customizable art.
Yes.
You could have a Yuru Kiara-inspired piece that's unique to your space.
So playful and unique. It's like... Now, on the other end of the spectrum, the articles talked about the comeback of traditional style murals and frescoes.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a contrast to the modern prints we've been seeing.
It is, and there's something so timeless and elegant about a traditional mural or fresco.
Yeah.
Imagine incorporating those into a modern or minimalist space. The juxtaposition would be amazing.
It would definitely make a statement.
For sure.
And get the statement. Ceilings are back.
Oh, wow.
Imagine vintage Japanese design elements on a ceiling.
That's incredible. The possibilities are endless.
Right. Wallpaper stencils, hand-painted designs. You could create a truly unique and immersive experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we get carried away with ceiling designs, there's one more thing we have to talk about.
Okay.
The Akari lamp by Isamu Noguchi. I am obsessed with this lamp.
It's an icon for a reason.
I know the way it's handmade from washi paper and bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect example of wabi-sabi in action.
It really is.
And the light it gives off is so soft and warm.
Yep.
It would create, like, the perfect ambiance in a space with vintage Japanese wall art.
Ooh.
I can already picture it.
It's incredible.
And it's so versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Whether your style is minimalist or more eclectic, an Akari lamp would add that touch of warmth and artistry.
Absolutely. And speaking of finding those perfect pieces, Black Friday and Cyber Monday are just around the corner.
Yes, shopping time.
Yes.
Any tips for our listener on snagging those amazing vintage Japanese wall art deals?
Well, I think research is key.
Okay.
Your sources look for reputable art retailers, especially when you're dealing with vintage.
Mhm.
Understanding art print pricing is crucial too, so you can spot a good deal when you see one.
And don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Yes.
Sometimes the best finds are in the most unexpected places. Thrift stores, flea markets, online marketplaces. You never know what treasures you might uncover.
So true. And remember, the price isn't the only factor.
Right.
When you're looking at a piece, think about how it makes you feel. Does it speak to you? Does it spark joy? Those are the pieces worth investing in.
It's about finding those pieces that resonate with you.
Right.
That tell your story.
Exactly.
And there's something really special about giving a vintage piece a new life, don't you think?
Absolutely.
It's sustainable and it adds so much character to a space.
It does. It's about creating a space that's uniquely a reflection of your personal style and values.
All right, so we talked about shopping now. Let's get into styling.
Okay.
We covered so many trends. I don't even know where to begin.
So many.
What about framing?
Yeah.
Are floating frames a good option for vintage Japanese wall art?
They can be, especially for pieces with a minimalist aesthetic.
Right.
Floating frames create that clean, modern look and let the artwork be the star.
I like that. What about a gallery wall?
Yes.
I feel like that could be a great way to showcase a collection of vintage Japanese pieces.
A gallery wall is a fantastic option. You could mix and match framed and unframed pieces, different sizes and styles. And to really bring that Japandi vibe to life, incorporate other elements like a low table or a tatami mat.
And when it comes to placement,
Yeah.
should we aim for like a focal point?
Creating a focal point is always a good idea.
Okay.
Choose a wall that naturally draws the eye and hang the artwork at eye level.
Mm-hmm.
You can also use lighting to highlight the piece and add drama.
Don't be afraid to experiment and have fun with it.
Yes.
It's your space,
Yeah.
your story.
Let your personal style be your guide.
We've covered so much ground today, from those hot 2024 trends to the beauty of wabi-sabi to shopping tips and styling ideas.
So much.
And yet there's still so much more to explore.
I know.
This whole conversation about vintage Japanese wall art has got me thinking about the broader exchange of ideas between Japan and the West.
It's fascinating.
It's like a continuous dialogue of back and forth of inspiration.
Think about how Art Nouveau influenced Japanese design, or how Japanese woodblock prints inspired European Impressionists.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing to see how these influences have intertwined throughout history.
And in a way, Japandi is a modern expression of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. As our world becomes increasingly interconnected, I think we'll see even more of these cross-cultural influences in design and art.
It's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time to be exploring these ideas and seeing how they shape the spaces we inhabit.
Absolutely. And for our listener who's clearly passionate about these trends, this deep dive has been like a great way to understand the key elements and see how they can all come together.
I agree. It's about taking those principles and aesthetics and using them as a springboard for your own creative expression.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to do it as long as it feels right for you and the space you're creating.
So as our listener gears up for those Black Friday deals, what final thought would you leave them with?
Ooh.
What's the one thing you hope they'll keep in mind as they explore these amazing pieces?
I would say approach it with an open mind and a sense of curiosity.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to mix and match different styles and eras. Let your intuition guide you. Look for pieces that speak to you, that evoke a sense of wonder, that tell a story.
Yes.
Because ultimately, the most beautiful spaces are those that reflect the heart and soul of the people who inhabit them.
That's beautifully said. It's not about blindly following trends.
Right?
It's about creating a space that feels authentically you. A space that tells your story.
Yes.
And vintage Japanese wall art, with its rich history, its timeless beauty, and its embrace of imperfection, offers endless possibilities for doing just that.
I agree.
So go forth, explore, experiment, and create a space that truly reflects your unique vision.
Yes.
And maybe you'll even discover something about yourself along the way.
I love that.
That's the magic of art and design, isn't it?
It is.
It has the power to transform not only our spaces, but also our perspectives.
Absolutely. It can open our eyes to new possibilities, challenge our assumptions, and help us see the world in a new light.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you and our listener.
Likewise, and to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of vintage Japanese wall art. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit transformative. Until next time, happy decorating. It's like, it's funny, as we've been talking about all these trends and styles, it's made me think about something bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
The relationship between Japan and the West when it comes to design and art.
It's a fascinating dynamic, isn't it?
It is.
This constant flow of ideas back and forth.
Yeah.
Japan has influenced Western design for centuries, but the West has also left its mark on Japan.
Right. It's like this creative conversation that's been going on for centuries.
I know.
Think about the impact of Art Nouveau on Japanese design.
Yes.
Like in the early 20th century, or how Japanese woodblock prints inspired the Impressionists in Europe.
It's amazing to see how these influences have intertwined throughout history.
Yeah.
Seeing how they've woven together to create entirely new styles and movements.
So cool. And in a way, Japandi is what we're seeing now, right?
Exactly. Japandi feels like a modern expression of this exchange.
Yes.
This beautiful blending of aesthetics that feels both familiar and fresh.
And as we become more globally connected, as the world just gets smaller,
Yes.
I think we're only going to see more of these cross-cultural influences emerge.
Absolutely.
In the world of design and art.
It's a very exciting time to be exploring these connections.
It is. For our listener who is clearly so interested in bringing these trends into their own space, I think this deep dive has given them a fantastic foundation.
I agree. It's all about understanding those core principles, the aesthetics, and then using them as a starting point for personal expression.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer,
Right.
It's about what feels right for you and the space you're creating.
Exactly. So as our listeners out there hunting for those Black Friday deals, what final thought would you leave them with? What's the one thing you hope they'll remember as they're exploring all these amazing pieces?
I think the most important thing is to approach it with an open mind.
Okay.
And a sense of curiosity. Don't be afraid to experiment, to mix and match different styles and eras. Trust your instincts. Look for pieces that speak to you, that spark a sense of wonder,
Yeah.
that have a story to tell. Because at the end of the day, the most beautiful spaces are the ones that truly reflect the people who live in them.
That is such a beautiful way to put it. It's not just about following trends.
Right.
It's about creating a space that feels authentically you.
Exactly.
A space that tells your story. And vintage Japanese wall art, with its rich history, its timeless beauty, and its embrace of imperfection, gives you endless possibilities to do just that.
It does.
So go explore, experiment, and create a space that truly reflects your unique vision. And hey, maybe you'll discover something about yourself along the way.
I love that.
That's the magic of art and design, wouldn't you say?
It is.
It has the power to transform not only our spaces, but also our perspectives.
Absolutely. Art and design can open our eyes to new possibilities, to challenge our assumptions, and help us see the world in a whole new light.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been such a pleasure exploring these ideas with you and our listener.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of vintage Japanese wall art. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit transformative. Until next time, happy decorating.
It's funny how, like, exploring something specific like vintage Japanese wall art
Yeah.
can kind of lead you to, like, these bigger thoughts
Yeah.
about cultural exchange and design and all that stuff.
It really does. And for our listener who's so into the beauty and the meaning of these pieces,
Right.
it's a reminder that, like, bringing vintage Japanese wall art into your space.
Yeah,
It's not just about how it looks, it's about bringing a piece of history and culture into your home.
absolutely. So for our listener, what stands out to you from our conversation today?
Ooh, good question.
What's sparking your imagination? Is
Yeah.
it the colors? Is it the textures? Is it the wabi-sabi philosophy?
Whatever it is, I hope this has given you the knowledge and like the inspiration to create a space that feels like you.
Yes, and remember, there's no right way to do it.
Yeah.
It's all about letting your personal style be your guide, play with it, experiment, see what you like.
Exactly. The beauty of design is that it's a journey.
It is an ongoing journey of discovery.
Well said so. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been such a joy exploring the world of vintage Japanese wall art with you.
It really has. And to our listener, thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and that you're feeling ready to bring some of these beautiful elements into your space. Until next time, happy decorating.